What is going on, everyone? Supreme Kami over here, and I'm gonna be doing some Alteration review for these this Battlogue units over here. So I'm not gonna go over the whole content today because I'll obviously do a separate video doing like the whole bang stuff with you guys. So I will cover it in that video. So right now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about the Helios all the way to the Perfect Strike Freedom over here, and just to see what kind of like upgrade did we get in terms of the Alteration stuff. But I will have to say, in terms of the cinematic EX skill, those are definitely hands down one of the things you want to upgrade right out the bat. Like the Helios, I have already upgraded the backpack, so that was like a no-brainer, because that, like, this one right here went from like what is it, what is this one specifically? This one went from an archer stand up to like an actual EX skill, so that is probably like the first time I've seen them do that. So man, this literally opens up like a huge possibility of what they can do in the future. So that is definitely a good approach on them, in my regards right there. In terms of why I need to even go over them, because they are a little bit more expensive, right? They're gonna cost you a 5 million a piece up here, as well as some alteration tools over here. So if you guys are slacking on a lot of these, alteration tools, this is definitely gonna be a time to just kind of see, all right, which part they want to alterate specifically, and which one do I not want to alterate, right? So I would say Helios is definitely the main choice right there. Perfect Strike Freedom may not be your hot take, because this is not really like a custom EX skill, if you will. No additional effects. It's going to be one of your 90-second generic one over here. The Blazing one is definitely a good choice, because this is going to pack you like a plentiful of effects right here. So this is definitely an A-OK for sure. In terms of Lifelines, I gotta say this is just your regular 30-second EX skill, but it just land you into like a more or less like a pseudo EX skill, or pseudo cinematic, if you will. Treat it as like what is it, the double sky higher than the sky backpack EX skill. Not to that full extent, but it is gonna still give you a little bit of the animation, if you will, right there. So let's actually start things off with the Helios over here. So in terms of the Helios setup here, so it is going to retain is, obviously is the head Vulcan, so we're not really going to talk too much about that. Stat wise looks pretty good. Word check wise, that's not really sufficient, like does not support it that well. Protect high firepower, so it's not really going to be a top tier choice for like a shooting based unit over here. Having head Vulcan is probably like the lethal blow to this one not being like a top choice, for a free-to-play player. This is definitely a really high number for a free-to-play players to be looking at if you do have a red marks, obviously. So I would say most people will have it at probably gold star, but red marks is probably should be reserved to any Soka parts. So yeah. So me personally, the head is probably not a good choice to alterate. In terms of these EX skill here, so you have your chest EX skill, your arm EX skill. I would have to say not alterating them is completely fine, because you're only moving from B power to B plus power, so you're not losing out in too much, I would say, damage output otherwise. So the stat itself does not really like jump all that well either. So I would say not alterating it is completely fine. You do see that armor is extremely high right there as well, like coming in to 6,711 is actually quite a bonker there, right? You can kind of argue that a shot is kind of like, yeah, kind of this its own, like it just kind of hold its own really well. I gotta give it that for Walker over there, but it's not probably, in my opinion, not really that much more difference, because purely you are gonna be using this EX skill anyway. So I don't see too much purpose into alterating the backpack, or not the backpack, the torso over here. So this is probably another skip for me. And then in terms of the arm, the stat in this one is just kind of like, what happened? Right? So this one, keeping at B power should be sufficient to try to get you through any mission, I guess. Do keep that in mind. They are going to be under, any alteration now is going to be under the there's no time duration, I will have to say, but these you can just kind of alterate them anytime if you like, because all they're going to cost is 5 million capital, as well as your 3 regular alteration tools, which is something I do know that a lot of people would be slacking, I guess, in a way, or it just don't have too many quantities. So that's why that is probably not a good option to alterate. In terms of the Lego here, so this is going to be one of those situations where the first portrait, or the first trait is really good, but the second portrait does not really supply what you want to alterate, because this is only specific to a squad use only. So if you're running this in like a single solo match, for example, you're not gonna get that benefit of the EX skills. So If you can only activate like on a certain time, so this is probably not a good choice anyway. So I will have to say an Ultra version is really good because you purely want the EXQ power boosting, or no, you want the EXQ CD reduction rater. So this one is definitely good in a squad build, but squad build, unless you purely need it for, let's say, the Elite 3 and 3 arena. Otherwise, I don't think this is a must-have to alterate anyway. So pretty high armor as well is something you just kind of point out right there. So backpack kind of gone over already. This is definitely something to alterate because of this like S power at max. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people should have this EXQ at max already. So after alteration, you're gonna get an S power right out the bat. You're also gonna get some speed increases as well as 49% to your shot to your squad. So that's good. Very good. In terms of the twin Sabo here, this is actually not a bad option for the first portrait already. So EXQ melee power reduced, so if anyone is trying to run that tank build, this is definitely the one you want to be using. But the second portrait is a little bit of a redundant because it does want you to take some damage. So right out the bat, you won't even be able to benefit from that. So like, come on, man. So probably not a good option to alterate in my opinion right there. Alright, moving on to the beam rifle here. In terms of the beam rifle, this is awfully a bad set of portrait right there, so this is completely a no-go for sure. Does support really well in terms of shot attack, but just unfortunate the trait itself is not. It's out. It's out of question right there. So that's why I feel like the only thing that's really worth alterating is just probably the backpack. All the other ones are just kind of like, whatsoever. But do keep that in mind. If you do, right, if you do full set alterate this guy right here, you will get a very sufficient number that would like a stat that should carry through many events. I gotta say, because someone did, I forgot which one of the Battlogue suit, like someone did fully get it up to like red mark level 99, and it was able to perform really well in terms of on paper wise. So just kind of something to keep that in mind. But I'm here for not, suggest you guys to alter every part right here, because that is completely no for sure, right? Moving on to the blazing. So blazing does actually support mobile fighter, so this is definitely another good option to be looking at. I feel like Tampa is definitely gonna one of the more sneaky options. So if you guys do have the Soulkai version, for example, you can definitely subsolid this one right out the bat, because the Tanfa, or in terms of the like these kind of gears right here, we don't have any other additional besides the 1-star version. So this is gonna be the best friend in terms of subslot right there. In terms of the trade right there, first portrait is just kind of alright bad in a way. Second portrait is very good, but if you guys do have the soul card version, definitely take advantage of this one and subslot it. So this one, I would have to say, if you guys do have the soul card version of this, do get this guy up to level 99, no problem. Alright, moving on to the head right here. So this is probably a no-brainer again. Having a head Vulcan is just like kind of dead already. The trait right there, you can kind of argue this one, you can just kind of use it for subslot purposes for the mobile fighter. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, this is probably not going to be a good part to alterate right out the bat. Moving on to the torso now. The torso, this supplies some pretty high armor as well. In terms of melee attack, it is very sufficient enough, I gotta say. But let's see what kind of trait. So you guys tell me what am I reading here? So melee crit or melee crit rate up by 47%. Is this good? No. No. So this is gonna be for sure a part to skip alteration. This crit in this game is not good, so definitely a good part to skip for sure. Moving on to the arm. So the arm is gonna give you out that the Kamehameha ball right here. So this is definitely one you don't want to alterate as well, because of the fact that pre-alteration is already B power, so it should supply good enough damage otherwise. So even a standard arm is not really like a good one for the melee aspect. So probably another skip for sure. This time mobile fighter, but that second tag for computer, a no. Alright, moving on to the leg. The leg is definitely something you want to alterate, because this one does supply some pretty good stat. This one does have this is more or less like a 2.0 of bicep in my opinion, because you do have speed increase, health recovery, as well as some melee attack to your squad. So this is an all-round AOK, really good one to be using, right? So this is definitely going to be a top choice to alterate for sure. Alright, the backpack. What does the backpack has for us over here? So in terms of the backpack, does have some pretty high stat. I will have to say, is this more or less like equivalent to the P attribute, Soul Kai God Gundam, the Burning Gundam? I think it is. I think it's around that same general area, right? In terms of stat, that's kind of crazy not to think about it. In terms of this one, the first initial trait was already good, but they decided to throw in the EX skill piercing, which is like, why? I don't know. Crit, not that crit is dead. I just don't think that crit is like that viable. You wanna run that over like a power boosting. So maybe the back is probably something you don't want to alterate as well, you know. Alright, moving on to the top part, which I've talked about already. If you guys do have the Soul Card version, that is definitely a good option to pick up. If you guys don't, I don't highly recommend you guys upgrading it to level, upgrading it as well as altering it, because there's really no point, I will have to say. Moving on to the Beam Sabers over here. So in terms of the Beam Saber, definitely they have some pretty good stat. Having Mobile Fighter is definitely an advantage right there, so you can definitely do some pretty good sub slot, I gotta say. But in terms of Dual Saber category, so I don't think there's that many good options where you can sub slot viably, I gotta say. Trait on this one, first trait was already good-ish, but you do have to shoot down one enemy in order to gain that melee power boosting, which is like kind of like an iffy choice for me personally. And then having that crit right there is just out of the question as well, so probably not a good option either. So nope. So the only thing I would say is a good option to alterate is gonna be the leg again. The top is definitely a situational thing to be. If you guys do have the Soul Card version, then you should. If you guys don't have a second copy for a subslot, right? So, alright, moving on to the Lifelines over here. So let's see what the Lifeline has in store for us over here. So moving on to the head, starting from the head. Excuse me. Okay, in terms of the head part over here, right? The head part, this definitely does not go anywhere in terms of what it's trying to boost, I gotta say. This one is definitely going to be for more or less like a melee centric build, but the stat itself does not really cover that. So first portrait is already good. It's already, you know, having like an enemy shooting power reduced by 25%. Second trait is more or less like a dead trait unless you guys are 100% running against an auto. Like in terms of how the auto system works, I'm not sure. Do I have to put this on my ally? Like I have tried it, right? Like I have tried putting it on the ally slot and then switch, because like, all right. So in terms of having it, using it, let's say in like a 3-on-3 situation, like there is a time when you can switch to your ally. So is this like automatically gives it? I don't know. I feel like this one is just kind of like no either. So just having the auto kind of is more like an iffy choice, because like you don't know when it's actually activated, right? I think that's the thing. I try to test it out, and I think the testing result does not, like, in terms of how I tested it out, it doesn't really like shows that it was activated. So I'm just like, kind of weird, right? Moving on to the torso now. In terms of the torso, I would say in order to do some more damage, this is definitely going to be a part you want to alterate, because you only look at the power. If you guys want to use this GX skill on a longer term basis, you would have to alterate it. In terms of longer basis, I mean for longevity wise, not talking about how, like, what kind of reach we're looking at, but you know, alterating this one does bump you up like a B plus power already, so it's sufficient enough, right? But is this something you want to alterate? I don't know. I feel like this one, on paper is a little bit better than the Perfect Strike Freedom one, in terms of the back EX skill, but this is regularly gonna miss. I'm not sure on how accurate it might be. If you're shooting at an enemy that's gonna move frequently, I think most of the time it might miss, because this is not like a full tested EX skill. It's not really gonna guide towards your enemy in a way, I guess. Because when I use Rampage, for example, my enemy might move slightly, ever so slightly to left or right, and it will still get through, no problem. But in terms of these right here, this is more or less it just shoot right out the bat. I think they kind of miss, so probably not a good alteration for me specifically. So in terms of the awakening over here, I think the zero system is something I don't even bother alterating, because this one is only bumping up to 39%, while if you look at the archer stand, for example, or the combat stand, they be boosting up to like 49% already. So this is probably not a good option. But the melee attack and the melee defense is fairly high, I gotta say. But it's just unfortunate, like these two vortex and just having an EX skill on the spot, not really gonna be too good anyways on a melee build centric, so probably not a good option to alternate as well. Moving on to leg over here. So in terms of the leg, like this is by far like a really good stat part I'm looking at. 3287 as well as 5000 on that defense. Like you gotta be kidding me, right? Is this like a Sokai part or something? Like this is good. But then again, you know, second portrait is just like, you know, having a like a 33% chance of not recalling, not good at all. So if you guys do really want to start, I feel like this one I can argue is really on that spot you can just kind of get it, because this one is a pretty good free to play option, pretty good stat. It's just the word tag wise it's a little bit wonky having, you know, for computer, but other than that I feel like this one is definitely a good option, right? You know, this is probably a pass for me to Alteration, so this one is good. And then in terms of the backpack, let's see what the backpack has in store for us over here. Backpack, the status still fantastic, right? Having a very high melee defense is a good thing for sure, right? In terms of the portrait, you should, I guess, if you do Alterate it, you are gonna gain a melee power boosting while you have lance category weapon equipped, which is a good thing, I guess. But other than that, I don't see too much purpose, I guess. You know, the war tag is not the best, obviously, but the status so does kind of like lead me towards alterating it. But if you guys do have better options out there already, probably not a good choice to alterate in. Moving on to the lance now, let's see what the lance has towards over here. Like this is actually pretty good. Like having a lance, like having a melee weapon enters the warfare, getting defense, that is gonna translate into this is really good. So what is roughly about what 2000 of 35? Let me see. So you're roughly looking. No, let me treat this as 40%. So this one is probably looking at what 11,200, which is very good actually. It's not bad. But the trade itself is bad. So why alterate it, right? Yeah, it's bad. In terms of this one, I kind of explained this one already. So this is more or less like a 30-second EX skill once over here. So it does kind of give you like that property of like, oh, I can see EX skill people. It does launch you into like a short animation wise, and I believe people tested out you don't take damage while you're activating it. Like there are some EX skill in terms of these 30-second EX skill ones, like you do take damage like here and there. So this one's definitely a good option to use, I guess. So it's not bad if you do want to alterate it. I think this one pre-alteration, no, you do need to alterate it in order to gain this one over here, because if you don't alterate it, it just appear what an attack buffer, so you do have to alterate it, unfortunately. Alright, in terms of the perfect strike freedom over here, let's see what the head has in store for us over here. In terms of the head, I'm not a fan of the setup already, so this is probably not a good choice to alterate. Status up is good, but the trade you have to look at the trade as well. It's just not good, so probably not a good alteration as well. Good tags for sure. That's definitely for sure. Torso over here. So let's see what the torso does over here. Torso does have some respectively equal trade for both melee and shot, so that's quite a surprise. This is, I would have to say, regardless of how bad the first portrait may be. The second portrait definitely makes it up, because this is going to be another option for you guys to get EX skill cooldown reduced by an X amount percent, this one being a 20%. So this is definitely a good option right out of the bat if you guys do use mid-range over here, so not a bad option for sure. In terms of the arm is going to be integrated shield, so that's why you're going to have a higher stat. This one does come with a C power, like they actually went with a C power, which is like quite sad, I guess. I guess if you do alterate it, you can, I guess. I don't know, like I definitely have to test it out myself. I think you can still do get damage, but I'm not gonna hold my hopes up for this one specifically as C power. That's brutal, right? I do wish they would have bumped it up to like at least like a B power. Unfortunately, it's only a C, so quite sad, honestly, right? In terms of the Legos over here, I think the leg is actually not a bad option as well, right? This is definitely a good leg to be alterated, because not only are you getting some some cooldown reduced by 20% or 15% in this case, as well as you're gonna get some EXQ power boosting when you have blade category equipped. Like what else can you ask for, man? Like this is definitely a good choice, like so it's not bad, definitely really good. Disregarding the stat, I will have to say the stat does hold up on its own really well in a way. So this is definitely a good part to alterate for sure. Alright, moving on to the backpack. I feel like the backpack is definitely something that deserves to alterate because they are finally giving us that perfect full burst over here. So this is definitely a good option. D pierce and B or A minus power. So this is definitely something you would have to alterate, or because if you don't, you're only gonna get the archer stand, which is like why, right? So this is definitely something you need to alterate. In terms of the anti-ship sword, this one specifically, if you guys like for these two specifically, if you guys do have the soul cut version and don't have, let's say, like another copy for subslot, they can be a good filler into them, I guess. Because they do give a little bit of, let's say, shot defense, so they should be able to give a good transition or translation to that, I guess. Same for this one, right? So this one, same situation. This one is actually, hold on, let me start things off with this one. This one is actually bad in a way because like you have to be facing type disadvantage. Why would I want to face it against like a type disadvantage in the beginning? Like, so having this is just kind of like bad, I guess. I don't know, kind of poor designing, and like if I have to say myself right there, so not good at all. Moving on to the couple over here. So this one specifically, I would have to say this one may be a little bit of a better choice, but then again, this one is being operated under auto, so I don't know how viable and what is like the activation rate for that one. Because like, what if I'm running a squad build, or not even a squad build, right? I think if you do just do auto, I don't know if this will even proctor. That's the thing. Like, there's no telling if they proctored. Like, that's probably the main issue, I guess. But I think having the first portrait may be sufficient enough already. Just having a second portrait, it's just mind-boggling to me that it's not gonna tell you. Like, I tried this before. Like I said, I did try using this kind of like condition, and I just don't know. Like, I tried testing, doing some number testing. It doesn't seem quite right to me, I guess. So that's why I'm kind of like more or less like kind of like stay back from using those with that condition, I guess. But moving on to this over here. So this one's gonna be a regular Igni, so it is gonna go up to a B power. I believe it's already B power, maybe. Did I alterate this one already, or do I not even have it? Oh, I did alterate it. I don't even know why I alterated it, but I think pre-alteration it should be at D power, so you would have to alterate it. So if you guys do like EX2, definitely alterate it. If you guys don't even alterate it. It's not really worth it, I guess, in a way. Moving to the rifle over here. So this is actually a pretty high stat. Coming in at 11,000 on the spot is really good. In terms of the trait itself, it's not going to be that supportive. It's pretty restrictive actually, right? This one is only wanting you to run it in an arena, which is like, come on, man. Like, there's other content I want to run on as well. So this one being that restriction, I guess does not really warning me to alternating it. But with that being said, that is gonna be pretty much it. I will have to say you guys do have to be kind of like cautious in terms of alternating it, because they are going to be a little bit more expensive. So you guys definitely have to see which kind of part you want to alternate before jumping in and spending all your resources. But with that being said, that is going to be pretty much it, and then I'll catch you guys all on the next one.